Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. It is a Tuesday edition of the show. We're going to talk about 5 big Bucs who may not be back in the 2025 season. We've already talked about a couple during our recent Pewter Report podcast episodes, but it's important to comb through everything, really fine-tune it, and make everybody aware of what the situation is. And, of course, there's always some news with coaches and GMs, in this case, a GM, and we're back to the Jaguar situation all over again. So we'll talk a little bit about that, too. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is the face that runs the place at PewterReport.com, SR, Scott Reynolds. Scott, hello. How we doing?
Doing good, Matt. Hello, Pewter people. How are you doing today? So we are we're in off-season mode right now, but we could experience breaking news at any time. We've been trying to get to this topic for about 2 weeks now, and we've had a lot coming up. We've had an offensive coordinator decide to stay, then decide to go, and then they hired a new offensive coordinator, and a general manager left, and we've done a couple of emergency podcasts in between all of that. So we're going to be talking about players today, and hopefully Mike Greenberg ends up staying in Tampa. Still not sure if he is going to take that interview or not. Have not had any confirmation one way or the other if he's going to do that. I know he's mulling over the decision whether to take the interview, right? There's 5 candidates that are in the running for this job, and this would be the third interview he's taken. He took the Panthers general manager interview in 2023,
right,
when they hired Dave Canales, but they opted to stay in-house with Dan Morgan. And then he also took the job interview for the general manager job at the New York Jets, his hometown team that he grew up following and being a fan of. But they decided to go in a different direction. So Greenberg thought he was back in Tampa for good. The Raiders hired John Spytek, and that leaves just one assistant general manager in Tampa Bay, or so we think. Now, all of a sudden, Liam Cohen has circled back around and put Mike Greenberg's name on the interview request list. Now, the Buccaneers can't stop this, nor would they want to, because this would be a promotion for an assistant general manager like Mike Greenberg to go become a general manager, possibly. It's just about whether Mike Greenberg, who was, no surprise, one of the Bucs brass members who was very pissed off about the way the Liam Cohen situation handled. I mean, he's the one that drew up the contract for Cohen to sign. So is this going to be a situation where he's had some time to think about it? Cooler heads prevail. It wasn't handled the right way in terms of Cohen's departure from Tampa Bay. But at the same time, it's like it happened, and this is an opportunity. There's only one of 32 general manager jobs out there, Matt. So maybe you go out there and explore the situation, talk to Shad Khan, talk to Liam Cohen, hear what they have to say, and we'll see.
Yeah, it's conflicting, right? Because on the one hand, as you just laid out, he was part of the group that was very angry with what Liam Cohen did, and rightfully so, understandably so. On the other hand, I think it's a little bit tougher for the money and the finance guys to become a general manager just based on, talent ultimately wins the day. And whether it's right or wrong, some people view certain talent evaluators and money evaluators in different senses. So if Greenberg, who's already, hasn't struck out because 3 strikes and you're out, but if you've had 2 interviews and you fouled off a couple pitches and you're down to your last strike, it's one of those things again. And we've seen it with, former Texans offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick, who was getting head coaching interviews last year, and then this year is fired as the offensive coordinator. And actually, Nick Caley, who almost had this job with the Buccaneers, is now the Texans offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Right now, things are pretty good for the Buccaneers. You just saw John Spytek get a job as a general manager. You have to take advantage of the situation now, because who knows? I mean, we all think the Bucs are going to be pretty good next season, but at the end of the day, you never know. And if the Bucs are a 5-win team, I don't think there's going to be crazy changes in the front office, but you're certainly not going to be interviewing someone for a general manager job after a team wins 5 games. So you can be angry all you want, but at the end of the day, it is a business. Now, for people that might get angry at Mike Greenberg, if he takes the interview, and I think he does, you really have to, whether it's for experience, whether you think you have a legitimate opportunity to do so, you also have to factor in every single angle of this. So that's why I think you have to take the interview. And
Yeah.
I get mad at Mike Greenberg because the reason why everybody was angry with Liam Cohen was he lied, he didn't answer, he ignored
Right.
all of those things. He gave them his word. Mike Greenberg never gave his word about interviewing with another team. He already did it with the Jets. So if he goes to the Bucs and say, "Hey, Jaguars are looking at me. I know we're all pissed about Liam Cohen, but
Yeah.
this is the chance for me to become a general manager." It's not the worst spot with the Jaguars. I mean, they're in a pretty bad division. Seems kind of winnable with the Texans being the top team. You have a lot of talent around you. You have a head coach that at least you know is a pretty damn good play caller.
That's right.
There are worse general manager jobs to take. I mean, if you want to argue if Spytek is in a better situation with the Raiders or Greenberg would be with the Jaguars if he gets the job, I think it's a pretty good conversation to have because you can make points for each side. So
I think probably the Jaguars, right? You at least have a quarterback.
So I think so too. Yeah, you at least have a quarterback and a star wide receiver, or at least a star wide receiver in the making, and a pretty good running game.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult conversation to have. You obviously have to move your family and stuff like that too. But I wouldn't blame Mike Greenberg at all if he at least takes the interview, and then if they want to offer him the job, that's another conversation to have too.
Yeah. Here's one thing that I had put out there too. The day that John Spytek was hired by the Raiders. And this was back on January 22nd. And I tweeted out on our Pewter Report X account, Jason Light is happy for John Spytek, but he must safeguard the Bucs front office to keep directors of player personnel Rob McCartney or Mike Beal from going with Spytek. Light could move into a team president role, promote Mike Greenberg to GM, and then make Beal and McCartney assistant GMs. And so maybe this is a situation the Buccaneers, if push came to shove, that they could decide to keep Mike Greenberg, because I know he's very well thought of, not just by Jason Light, but also by the Glazers too, right? So, and he does more than he's more than a capologist, folks. He is the team strategist. He works with Jackie Davidson, the vice president of football research, to do not just the salary cap planning for the football side of the organization, but also, I don't know if you know this, but the entire organization, marketing, ticketing, sales, business, like everything. So Greenberg is the capologist for the entire Bucs organization, not just working with Jason Light, but also working with the other general manager within the organization, the chief operating officer, Brian Ford. So he wears a lot of hats in that building, not just in the personnel side of things in the front office, the administration part of it. But he would be somebody that the team really, I think, could not afford to lose. You can afford to lose John Spytek because you've got Rob McCartney and Mike Beal and Shane Scannell and Byron Kiefer. It's a young, talented, deep roster on the personnel side of things. Guys that watch tape, that grind tape, that interview players, that know the X's and O's, that can spot the draft picks and the free agents and the guys to target in trades. There's really not many people like Mike Greenberg, who is an ultimate savant when it comes to the cap. And Jackie Davidson, too, you would hope that if he took the job in Jacksonville, that maybe she could fill his shoes. She is just as talented and bright, but you hope that she doesn't follow Greenberg to Jacksonville, too, because Greenberg and Jackie Davidson worked together with the Jets back under Mike Tannenbaum back in the day. That's how they met. And then after Mike Greenberg had settled into Tampa, Jason Light comes along a couple years after, because you remember he started working with Mark Dominic. Then he got Jackie Davidson into the building to help out with contract negotiations, strategy, just all sorts of things from a salary cap standpoint. So, you know, he's super important. And I did this Pewter Pulse video about a month ago. I called it, is a Pewter Purge coming, right? And I listed Cohen, Spytek, and Greenberg. And out of those three guys, the least guy that you can afford to lose is Greenberg. So selfishly speaking, I hope he doesn't take the interview, or that if he does and does get offered the job, that the Glazers and Jason Light in the 11th hour act on this and say, wait a minute, we're going to make you the general manager here. Jason would still have a lot of say-so in personnel as like a team executive or president, but you give Greenberg the title, the promotion, the money that general managers get. And I think that would be the ideal pathway forward for this franchise.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm sensing and feeling as well. It's kind of a mirror image of what we had talked about with Liam Cohen before he ultimately took the Jaguars job. It was take the interview, hear him out, and if they offer him the job, then come back to the Bucs and say, hey, this is the situation. And then the Bucs could act and say, okay, we're either going to make you head coach and let go of Todd Bowles, or we're going to give you a promotion or a raise and a handshake agreement that whenever Todd steps down, or if Todd agrees, I'm only going to coach for 2 more years, and then you become the head coach.
Yeah.
They can kind of do that now with Mike Greenberg to an extent with the general manager job. He could go to Jacksonville, take the interview. They offer him it right then and there, and he goes, okay, I still got to think it over. Go back to Tampa and say, hey, guys, they want to make me their general manager. And that's where Jason can go to the Glazers and say, all right, handshake agreement. I'm going to, get promoted to team president.
Yeah.
Mike Greenberg becomes a general manager. I like that idea, or I at least like the idea of letting the Bucs inevitably match whatever the Jaguars are going to offer Mike Greenberg, and maybe even give him more. And the benefit that the Bucs have is that Mike Greenberg just saw how Liam Cohen screwed over the Buccaneers. I don't think Mike Greenberg would do that to Tampa Bay. He would lay everything out in front of the Bucs and say, here are the options. I have either option A or option B. What can you do for me?
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
In a respectable way.
Yeah,
but, just lay everything out.
Yeah, without a doubt. I totally agree. So that's the latest right now as it stands with Mike Greenberg, and we'll see. Matt, we've broken plenty of news on the show as it happens the 4 o'clock hour before. So we've yet to see if he has accepted the interview offer or not. That's the first step. Second step would be him going and getting the interview. Saw a comment here. Rick Stroud said on his podcast, making it sound like Greenberg's taking the job. He's got to be offered the job first, right? So he does have some limitations. He will be the first to tell you he's not a personnel guy. He's a cap guy. And, so who would be in charge of personnel? I mean, ultimately, Greenberg would have say-so on that because he would be the general manager. He would have say-so on the roster and all that. But he would have to have an assistant general manager, someone working with him, someone like a Shane Scannell, a Mike Beal, a Rob McCartney, somebody who he would know and trust, he could find good players to where he would say, hey, Greenberg, this is the guy we need to draft. This is the guy we need to target and trades. This is the guy we need to sign a free agency. Greenberg evaluates it, looks at the cap and says, okay, let's do it, right? That's the missing component. He is the cap guy. He needs the other personnel guy too. I saw that Tony Baselli was like an executive vice president, right, with the Jaguars. I think that's his title. I don't know if he would be that guy for the Jacksonville Jaguars, if there'd be other, dignitaries that would be higher ups in terms of personnel. Of course, they have their allotment of scouts, but in terms of the brass, right, like here, the brass is Jason Light, Todd Bowles, Mike Greenberg. It was John Spytek, Mike Beal, Rob McCartney. That is kind of the Bucs brass right there.
Yeah, and what I'll comment about with that comment regarding Rick saying it on his podcast, Rick tweeted that out last night as well, and then I'm certainly not ridiculing Rick or criticizing or anything like that, but he tweeted that out last night that this has got to be the job for him. And then the next day, their reports came out that the Jaguars are interviewing like 2 or 3 other guys. So not saying he jumped the gun a little bit.
Yeah.
Of course, Mike Greenberg has a huge advantage in all of this, having worked with Liam Cohen last season. And the fact that part of the deal with Liam Cohen going to the Jaguars is that he's going to have a little bit more of a say of who gets that general manager job. So, of course, Mike Greenberg would be the leader in the clubhouse with Jacksonville because of his relationship with Liam Cohen.
Right.
I don't think that is those ties are completely gone just because of what Liam Cohen did. But I think ultimately it'll come down to, if he's offered the job, does Mike Greenberg want to leave Tampa? Does he want to leave this situation that he has with the Bucs if the Bucs are willing to sweeten the deal and make him the general manager? Ultimately, I think that's what it comes down to. But there's no question it's an advantage for Greenberg with Jacksonville knowing that Liam Cohen is the head coach.
That's right. And he knows Cohen's strengths and weaknesses too. He's had a year seeing him, the good and the bad of Liam Cohen. So he would know what he's getting into when he walks into it. And, nothing against the Buccaneers, but I think you have to at least go and see and listen to what Shad Khan and Liam Cohen have to say. Check out the surroundings. Again, just because you take the interview doesn't mean they're going to hire you. I mean, Greenberg's been passed over twice by the Panthers and by the Jets. So he may be out of the 5 guys that are going to get interviews. He may be number 1 on the list. He might be number 5 on the list. Who knows? But we'll see. It's something we're monitoring right now. We've got a really good show, I think, today. Some players we're talking about. We've talked a lot about coaches and coordinators, and front office people,
and who the Bucs might
Senior
draft
Bowl guys. Yeah. So we're talking about actual Buccaneer players today. So it should be a good show. We do have a couple of super chats to start things off with. So let's get to a couple of those.
Yeah. Trey Cloutier, thanks for the $1.99 super chat. We appreciate that. Says, what's the chance we trade Rachaad White in the offseason?
I think pretty slim. The interesting thing is he's in a contract year, right? And so you have Sean Tucker. If Sean Tucker or Bucky Irving, one of those guys was really good in pass protection, then you certainly have a little bit more flexibility to do that. The problem is running backs. I don't want to say they're a dime a dozen because I love the position dearly. I grew up, in the 80s, 70s, and 80s watching, Eric Dickerson rush for 2,000 yards, and just John Riggins was my hero. I moved to Kansas City from being a Redskins fan in Northern Virginia. And then you got Christian Okoye and Barry Ward there. So I love the running back position. I love that the league has become a lot more balanced. It used to be too pass heavy for my liking. But I will say running backs are a little bit dime a dozen. I don't know that you want to trade for them. You can typically find some in the draft. It's a position that always seems to slide and fall in the draft. You can find some good ones in undrafted free agencies where you found Sean Tucker. Isaiah Pacheco was a 7th round pick, Matt, out of Rutgers. Damn good back, right? They drafted a 1st round back and Clyde Edwards-Helaire did Kansas City, and then one in the 7th round in Isaiah Pacheco. Pacheco's the better back, right? I mean, they already parted ways with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So I don't know that he has a lot of trade value, and we've already seen Bucky Irving, get dinged up and Rachaad step in. And it's not like Sean Tucker can't, but, it's better to have 3 backs than 2. And you're going to have Bucky Irving for 3 more years under his rookie deal and Sean Tucker on 2 more years of his rookie deal. And then you've got Rachaad White entering his final season. So he should be highly motivated to play out. I don't know that they're going to extend him, but I don't know that there's a lot of trade value for Rachaad.
Right. I look at this in a couple of different ways. And the biggest thing to me isn't even that it's his contract year. It's that it's his contract year on a rookie deal.
Yeah.
Like you'll see guys get traded on the last year of their deal or the last year of guaranteed money, kind of like with Carlton Davis last year, where he had 1 more year left on his deal when they traded him to Detroit because the Bucs didn't want to pay him that much money. And they were going to cut him unless they were able to get a draft pick out of it. With Rachaad White, there's no value into trading him right now with the last year of his deal. That's what he's going into because it's not like it's a salary cap dump because it's a rookie deal.
Yeah.
And 2, because of it's the last year of his deal, what does that do for the trading partner that the Bucs are trying to make a deal with? There's not that. Why would you give up something for a guy that you're only going to have for 1 year unless you go in saying we're going to sign him to an extension?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, unless your name is Christian McCaffrey or Saquon Barkley, that's just not going to happen. The other side of it as well, from a Bucs player personnel standpoint, it's not that Rachaad White is the best pass blocking running back for the Bucs and probably the best receiving one as well.
Yeah.
It's that he is head and shoulders above Bucky Irving and Sean Tucker when it comes to pass blocking.
Yeah.
Like, I think we saw Bucky get exposed a little bit, again, strictly just as a pass blocker. We know how great he is as a running back, and you'll take Bucky Irving all day over Rachaad White. But Bucky got a little more playing time in that playoff game, especially on passing down situations, and he got exposed pretty badly. That's something he's got to work on this offseason and going into next year. You need Rachaad White for that value because Sean Tucker doesn't do it as much as well. Now, if the Bucs want to go and draft another running back this year in a late round, kind of like how you just talked about Isaiah Pacheco, late round pick, maybe even another undrafted guy, and he could find a way to pass block or whatever it may be, well, then maybe you found your replacement for Rachaad White with Bucky being the top guy. But that doesn't mean that you're going to trade him this year. But I appreciate the question nonetheless.
For sure. Absolutely.
Good good topic of conversation this offseason.
No doubt.
We have a couple of YouTube channel members that have joined as well. Shout out to Zap Brannigan. We appreciate you. Rashad1239, maybe a relation to Rachaad White, even though spelled a little bit differently. And Joshua Shaw as well. Thank you
very much.
Very, very much for becoming Pewter Report YouTube channel members. We appreciate it.
Yeah, greatly appreciate that. And also, too, this would be a great time to give a shout out to our Pewter Platinum members, as we do on every show. Scott Federico, Rathel Gordon, Noah Parr, Scotty J, Dave Anderson, Eric McMillan, Zach Jarvis, Hezo813, Ash Fishpool, Joel Elrican, Sam, John Dale Morris, and Zap Brannigan. Thank you very much. Appreciate all of the support. We appreciate all of our Pewter Report TV channel members at every level, but the Pewter Platinum members, that's part of the perks. You get the shout out every show. So we greatly appreciate your support. We also appreciate the tasty beverage that gives us all the energy, and that is Celsius energy drink. And we talked about these two new flavors. This is the Retro Vibe. Had this yesterday. Fantastic. Tastes like sherbet. It's retro because if you're an old school guy like me, you grew up with the orange and the raspberry and the lime sherbet, and this is what the Retro Vibe tastes like. The Playa Vibe, or as I call it, the Playa Vibe, tastes like a pina colada, folks. They absolutely nail these flavors. So just a couple of the new flavors of Celsius that you can try. They're available. Also, there's a new Celsius Essentials flavor called Grape Slush that's available exclusively at 7-Eleven right now. That's fantastic as well. That's the bigger cans, more caffeine and all that good stuff. But take it away, Matt.
Yeah, we love Celsius for all the great flavors like Scott just mentioned. My personal favorite is the Arctic Vibe. You also can't go wrong with the sparkling watermelon lemonade that you see on the screen. So if you need to know where to get a Celsius energy drink, maybe you're out of town, maybe you just moved to a new city, maybe you're on a work trip like we were in Mobile, Alabama last week, go to the Celsius store locator on their website, punch in your address, and it'll tell you the closest place where you could pick one up. Might be a Walmart, a Stop and Shop, a Publix, a Piggly Wiggly, or your bodega.
Bodega.
And after you keep frequenting your bodega, you know you love Celsius and you want more, you want to get it in bulk, you can buy it in bulk over on Amazon with the Subscribe and Save. I'd recommend the Variety Pack for all of their fantastic flavors. You can have it sent to your place of residence whenever you want, completely at your leisure. Just make sure you drink at Celsius Energy Drinks, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com.
As Jeff the Champ, who is a Pewter Report TV channel member, says, drinking a strawberry lemonade right now. That's a hell of a good flavor. Definitely like that.
Oh, yeah.
Also have a great comment here from Jerry. Hello, guys. I am here in Pennsylvania. Live 60 miles from the Pittsburgh Steelers nation, but I'm a Bucs fan. That's great to hear. We greatly appreciate the Bucs fans from all across the country, as well as around the world, too. And it's a great state of Florida, for sure.
Yeah, had great fans internationally as well. By the way, we had a comment from Callie Bucks, who's now been a Pewter Report YouTube channel member for 5 months now. Thank you so much for your support, Callie Bucks, who says, we need another running back that won't show our hand. I don't see Bucky ever becoming a good pass blocker.
You know, that's something you can get better at. And a lot of these guys, they don't have to do that a lot in college because they're feature backs. And a lot of times they may get passes out of the backfield. That's kind of what happened with Bucky Irving. He was on third downs a lot, caught a ton of balls. I think he led the nation in running back receptions his last year at Oregon. And so instead of staying in the block, they just would flare him out, and he would catch those dump off passes from Bo Nix. And so that's kind of how they dealt with the rush there was he was the check down guy. But in the NFL, it's not always like that. Sometimes you need more than just a check down, right? Sometimes you need 12 yards on 3rd and 12. So you got to have that back stay in and pick up a blitzing linebacker. especially when you got a guy like Steve Spagnuolo or, one of those coordinators that will throw the kitchen sink at you. So can you get better at it? Yes. I just don't think a lot of these backs are good at it coming out of college. It's something that they have to learn at the NFL level. And sometimes it takes more than a year to really get good at it. Now, Bucky Irving is not in the locker room, right? He's just not, Matt. He'll speak maybe once a week to the media. He does not like media attention. That's fine. The dude is as focused as you can possibly be on football. He is the first guy in the building. Todd Bowles has said that, right? He's the last guy out of the building. He is 1,000% serious about football. That's why he was so good as a rookie. That's why the Buccaneers were very fortunate to land this guy in the draft, because he is already a pro. Even as a rookie, he was a pro, had a veteran's mindset, very similar to like Tyke Smith in that manner. So I wish that he would be in the locker room. I could tell him. I've already told Sean Tucker. I said, Sean, I was here during the Warwick Dunn years. Warwick Dunn, pound for pound, one of the best pass blocking running backs of all time. And I said, this organization has the film of when Warwick Dunn was in Tampa, even as a rookie in 1997, just absolutely stoning guys in the hole as they're coming through in the blitz. He would cut guys a lot because he's 5'8", 5'9", 185 pounds. Bucky is a little bit bigger, but not a whole bunch bigger. But like I told Sean, and Sean's a little bit of a bigger back at 205, right? But still 5'10". I said, Sean, you want to see more playing time, especially in the fourth quarter of a close game? They don't trust you. They trust Rachaad. You need to spend this offseason watching Warwick Dunn film. They have it in the building. Go ask the video guy to do some cut-ups of all of Warwick Dunn's pass blocking. Study that guy, because it's not about size. It's about technique and want to, right? And it's about IDing. You got to ID the right guy. You have to know where your assignment is. But then once you have your assignment, once the ball snapped, it's about technique and want to. And that's something you can learn. If you have good technique, you're going to want to have more want to, because you're going to feel confident about it, right? So that's all it takes. You can learn it at the next level. And if Bucky was around, I'd tell him the same thing I told Sean.
And Bucky embodies that it's not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the dog. So it's just
exactly
really
right.
And Bucky's a smart football player, but it's just the intelligence of pass blocking, because blitzes come from all different ways and all different shapes and sizes. So I believe that Bucky can improve on it. And I think he will, because the coaches aren't dumb. They know where they can improve. Yeah. And did it show the Bucs' hand at times? I saw some people in the chat saying it's when Rachaad White is in the game. Yeah. One thing I'd like to see, because we were all in agreement, Bucky Irving needs to get more rushing attempts. It shouldn't be completely even between Bucky Irving and Rachaad White. But towards the end of the season, and at the end of the day, the Bucs scored 29.5 points. They were top 4 in passing yards, rushing yards, and total yards overall. They were in 3 in some of those categories as well. But they kind of went away from even giving Rachaad White the football on running plays. And I don't think they should do that either. Like, agreed. If you're going to give Bucky 25 rushing attempts in a game, hypothetically, Rachaad White should still get at least 10, maybe 11, and keep the defense honest. And I think that was part of the issue down the stretch, was that they just didn't even use Rachaad White in the running game at all, And that kind of factored into, some struggles in certain moments, like against New Orleans in the first half. And it was always first half struggles. It was never like an entire game type of struggles, because Liam Cohen's good at adjusting and changing things. But that's something I'd like to see at the beginning of next year, is still get Bucky all of his touches. That's right. He should not have a game with less than 20 rushing attempts, in my opinion. But keep Rachaad White involved, where the defense can't just say, oh, it's definitely going to be a passing play because Rachaad White is in. And then that allows you to operate the screen game that much better, not just with Rachaad, but with Bucky Irving as well, because Bucky can do a lot of damage in the passing game too. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that's definitely, I agree with everything you said. And it's a good problem to have when you have 3 running backs too, that are talented. It just, Bucky and Sean have to level up in pass protection. And I think they can. I think they will, Folks, we're about ready to dive into today's topic. And we've had a lot of discussion about Mike Greenberg. We just don't know yet if he's going to be taking the job. We do have a super chat here from Gaming Reaper, $1.99.
Thank you very much. Any word on Jags and Greenberg? Not yet. We will, we'll do an emergency podcast. If he takes the job or if he comes back or something, we'll let you know. Kind of talked about it at the beginning of the show. Feel free to go back and listen to it. I think, too, you can, even though this is a live video on Pewter Report TV, you can actually rewind the podcast and start
I do
watching
with other
it.
shows.
Yeah, while we're going on. So we did talk about that for about 10 minutes. CGB says the Blazers need to make Greenberg the highest paid in his position in the league. He might be already. I don't know. That's one of the things. It's, they typically don't disclose what coordinators make. Sometimes they'll disclose what coaches make, but for front office people, they rarely disclose that publicly. So I don't know where Greenberg stacks up in terms of assistant general managers and capologists. I don't know. I don't even know where Jason Light ranks in terms of general managers. But as soon as we know something, we will let you all know. But one thing we will let you know about is tomorrow's show is going to be the Bucs Unsung Heroes from 2024. We're going to take one final look back and give credit where credit's due to a lot of guys that leveled up. And we've got a Pewter Report roundtable coming up later today about guys that have to level up this offseason. So we'll be talking about that tomorrow at 4:00 Eastern time. Then on Thursday, Josh Grizzard will be taking the podium at 12:30 at One Buccaneer Place. And we will have that reaction to his press conference and everything that Grizzard had to say. I'm sure Todd Bowles will probably be there too. We'll ask Todd some questions, and we'll have that reaction press conference podcast on Thursday at 4:00. So 2 more shows for the week, plus a Pewter Insider on Friday for our Pewter Premier and Pewter Platinum members. So a lot of great content coming up here. I just put up a Pewter Pulse video as well. So take a look at that. Josh's Pewter Report video on how much it would cost to trade for Myles Garrett was very interesting, and that's done really well as well. So check out the Pewter Pulse video that just came up. I'll drop that in the chat here as well.
Yeah, it's a Myles Garrett sweepstakes right now. And I like that we're still in the early stages of it. What teams are going to be interested? What teams can even afford Myles Garrett at the moment? Are the Bucs in that mix? Gerald McCoy was on the drive with T-Kraz yesterday, pleading with Jason Light and the Bucs front office to make a move for Myles Garrett. So will they do so? It remains to be seen. We obviously recently talked about other edge rusher options for the Bucs as well. So a lot of good content, a lot of good conversation coming up, and more to come because we got free agency. We have the combine coming up even before free agency, where we will talk to Todd Bowles and Jason Light. So yeah, the Bucs don't have a game, but the news and the content doesn't stop.
That's right. There's a lot going on. As Corey Wilder says here, Greenberg seems like an honorable dude. Doubt he joins Cohen in a dumpster fire. We'll see. It's tempting, right? Because there's only 32 general manager jobs out there. And, I hear what you're saying. And I think initially that's probably what Greenberg was thinking too. But sometimes it doesn't hurt to take a listen and then make a determination, and I can't fault him if he wanted to go there and listen to what they had to say and feel it out.
It's like putting on a movie that maybe you're watching with your significant other and you go and being like, I don't really care, but she wants to watch it, so I'm in. And then you're like, all right, this is actually a pretty damn good movie. Like that could happen theoretically with Mike Greenberg, and Bucs fans wouldn't like this, but he goes in being like, all right, I'll listen to the Jaguars. I'm not getting my hopes up. And then they're like, hey, we'll offer you this, this, and this. And he goes, wow, like now I'm really interested in the job.
I know.
So it remains to be seen.
A couple more comments and then we'll dive into today's topic here from Hezo813. When is Jason Light's next press conference? The combine? It very well could be. Yeah. Sometimes Jason Light has done a postseason press conference, but more often than not, that is the next time that we see him is at the combine. And we'll be there. The Pewter Report staff's already booked our travel accommodations in Indianapolis, so we will be there for the NFL Scouting Combine again. That'll be coming up later this month. I believe the 24th of February. We'll be there through March 1st, so we will have boots on the ground for Todd Bowles and Jason Light's pressers out there as well. As Andrew Barrezo says, any chance Jason brings back John Robinson, former Titans GM, to help with scouting, now that Spytech is gone? I don't think so. Not that he would be opposed to it, But the thing is you'd have to bring John Robinson back at kind of a senior level position, right?
Right.
And I just think there's some guys that have been here since 2016 that have worked for the opportunities to get where they are. Guys like Rob McCartney, Mike Beal, both of those are vice president of player personnel. So, you can't really have John Robinson come in from the outside and leapfrog those guys just because he was here. And then you have some guys like Shane Scannell and Byron Kiefer in the next level in the pro and the college scouting department that have put in their time and paid their dues. So I don't know. I think if Jason Light's scouting department, personnel department was raided this offseason by Spy Tech taking some guys, and if Greenberg gets the job and takes some guys, he could lean on John Robinson in a pinch to come in and help. But I think right now he's got a lot of in-house guys that would be worthy of promotions.
Yeah, if Greenberg leaves, I think that changes it a little bit. But if he stays, then yes, you're just looking at, okay, they lost Spy Tech, and while that is a tough loss, it's one guy versus like a whole department.
Yeah.
So I think that's important to factor in when kind of looking at all of these details.
Yep, exactly. Well, let's get to today's topic today, the 5 big Bucs who may not be back in Tampa Bay this year. And one guy is really no surprise. It's cornerback Jamel Dean, something we've talked about for quite a long time. Matter of fact, when Carlton Davis was traded last year, Matt, to the Detroit Lions, they were about ready to cut him before free agency started. And Detroit says, wait a minute, we'll take him. We'll give you a third. And Jason Light says, oh, what? A third? Sure. Here you go. And that's what happened. And what did we say at the time, Matt? We said, well, why did Carlton Davis get traded? Because he's often injured and drops interceptions. And that's kind of been the same situation with Jamel Dean during his time in Tampa. We even said at that time, if Jamel Dean doesn't start becoming more of a playmaker and staying off the injured list, then he could see the same fate that Carlton Davis saw this offseason. And lo and behold, Matt, it looks like that might be happening.
Another thing we said at the time with Carlton Davis when he went to Detroit was this very well could have been Jamel Dean, except Dean was still owed more guaranteed money at the time, or just owed more money and would have been more dead cap money if they had to cut him. That's the only reason why Carlton Davis was traded and not Jamel Dean. And I've been on the record before, and I still believe this, because they're both injury prone. So to me, it just comes down to better skill and play. If all contracts were the same, I would have kept Carlton Davis and let go of Jamel Dean. And I like Jamel Dean as a player, but the injuries have been too much. Same with Carlton Davis. But Carlton at least had a couple more interceptions than Jamel Dean. He had a really nice one this year for Detroit in the end zone against the Texans in that crazy game, which Detroit made a big comeback at the end and it was high scoring. But Jamel Dean just dropped a ton of balls. The other thing you could say about Carlton Davis was you could line him up against the number one against other teams, and he would take it personally. He would go in with an FU attitude and say, I'm shutting down DeAndre Hopkins. I'm shutting down Jamar Chase. I hate your guts, Michael Thomas. And we know he hates Michael Thomas's guts because he was on Twitter and X right after when they beat the Saints in the playoffs a couple of years ago, still tweeting at him. Jamel Dean is a great guy. I like him. He's a really good interview.
I do too.
But when you're comparing Carlton and Jamel, and I guess we don't have to do that because Carlton's not on the team anymore. But if you look at Jamel this season, it was the same thing. A lot of injuries and not that much production in coverage. Yes, he can get some good pass breakups. Yes, he's still overall pretty solid. But for the money that he's getting, it's not worth it for the Bucs anymore, especially with Zion McCollum being up and coming and being on that rookie deal, which eventually they may have to pay Zion McCollum. He's got durability. Jamel Dean doesn't, and Jamel Dean doesn't take the ball away, and he's not a shutdown corner. If he was a guy that you could just put him on either side of the field and follow the top receiver, and maybe he doesn't get a lot of targets his way and he only gets pass breakups, fine, you can live with that. But he doesn't do that either. So it's just a bad combination and too much money. And as good as Jamel Dean can be, it's just not enough in a 17-game season.
You're right. 75.7 grade overall from Pro Football Focus. That's actually really good.
Yeah.
75.4 coverage grade. The problem is he missed 5 games last year, plus 2 halves. He missed the second half of the Saints game back in week 6, and he missed the second half of the playoff game, which was an absolute disaster for the Buccaneers. So the best ability in the NFL is availability. And he is a guy that just can't stay on the field. He also has 8 career interceptions in 6 years. And 1 in the last 2 seasons.
Right.
59 tackles, 7 pass breakups, 1 interception, 1 forced fumble. He's got a $15.1 million cap value. That's the 7th highest on the team this year. But the Bucs can clear almost 8.3, that means save $8.3 million in cap room. So it just seems to me that this team probably goes out and gets another free agent corner, then drafts one, maybe even in the first round. You can never have enough good cornerbacks. Right. The Buccaneers have had injury problems at that position. Knock on wood, Zion McCollum has been really durable. But you're really 4 starting caliber cornerbacks in this league, because the cornerback position, it is a rough and tumble position, right? You get hurt in run support, jumping up for passes, you land wrong, all that stuff, right? So Jamel Dean's one of those guys that is a starter that probably won't be here next year. Another guy in the secondary that may not be back is Jordan Whitehead, right? Jordan Whitehead came with high expectations this year, and he was a much ballyhooed re-signing. We all kind of thought that and said that. This is back in the day, right? This is the Bash brothers in that secondary with Antoine Winfield Jr. and Jordan Whitehead. Well, it didn't really work out. Now you got Whitehead back, signing a 2-year, $9 million deal, a 58 overall grade in Pro Football Focus, 53.5 coverage grade. He missed 6 games this year, ended up on injured reserve for 4 games. Then he comes back. Then he gets into a car crash right before the Saints game. Was it the Saints game or was it the Panthers game? The Panthers game, wasn't it?
It was before the Panthers game.
Yeah, before the Panthers game. Ends up being at fault in the accident. Ended up hurting his neck, broke some vertebrae in his neck. He is expected to make a full recovery. There is that. But will he be the same player? Well, you know what, Matt? I don't know that they want him to be the same player. They want him to be a better player. 79 tackles last year. I'm going to read you Whitehead's stat line from last year. Then I'm going to read you Christian Izzian's stat line, okay? 79 tackles for Whitehead, 75 for Izzian. 2 tackles for loss for Whitehead, 4 tackles for loss for Izzian. 3 pass breakups for Whitehead, 3 pass breakups for Izzian. Remind you, Izzian is the backup defensive back.
Correct.
Okay?
And played all over. Played in the slot a little bit when it was needed. Played corner the first week of the season. Played
absolutely. Yep. Then 1 interception for Izzian, no interceptions for Whitehead. 1 forced fumble for Izzian, no forced fumbles or fumble recoveries for Whitehead. So Whitehead really did not make any splash plays last year. Ended up being, I want to say, the 3rd or 4th leading tackler on the team. But $4.5 million for someone who's a liability in coverage and made 0 splash plays this year. Here's the thing, Matt. He's on the non-football injury list. When he passes his physical, he can be released, and he is owed no guaranteed money. So the Buccaneers can clear $4.5 million of cap space by moving on from Jordan Whitehead, who is entering a contract year. So will they do that? I don't know. Right. I almost think they kind of should, Matt.
I think what hurts Jordan Whitehead is the fact that he played a lot of games when he was available. He played a lot of games without Antoine Winfield Jr.
Yeah.
And it just is what it is. Antoine Winfield Jr. makes a lot of players better around him.
Yeah.
And maybe that's not an excuse. Like, Jordan Whitehead is still getting paid a pretty good salary and should go out and make plays. But without having the freedom of Antoine Winfield Jr. cleaning up a lot of things, Whitehead wasn't able to, I think, play as loose as he necessarily wanted to, because he had to cover up some things that typically Antoine Winfield Jr. would do. With that said, I think what the Bucs were missing the most from Jordan Whitehead, which they had him for his first run with Tampa Bay, was he was that sledgehammer. He was that adrenaline rush, the ass kicker, the guy that would come in, make a big hit, force a fumble, make a big play like that, and blitz up at the line of scrimmage as well and be good in the running game. But he did not force a fumble at all this season. He didn't really make the big hit that you wanted to.
Right.
And another benefit that we thought coming into this season when they signed Jordan Whitehead was, okay, he's going to bring all of the tangibles that he had his first run with Tampa Bay, which was the sledgehammer and the hard hitter.
Yep.
But he got that much better in pass coverage. We
Yeah.
all alluded back to the big 3 interception game against Josh Allen back in the day, and then recording another interception later on in that season. And it just didn't translate to this run with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, when you look at the whole situation, which hurts Jordan Whitehead as well, is you could be saying, well, if you let go of Jordan Whitehead, what does Tampa Bay do at safety? Because you also have to draft a corner or sign a corner.
Yeah.
Let's not forget, Tyke Smith can be moved back to safety. We talked about this a little bit on yesterday's show.
Yep.
And then the Bucs are trying to find a slot corner, or you put Christian Izien back in there.
Yep.
And it's a little bit easier to just say, okay, we're going to move on from Jordan Whitehead, put Tyke Smith at safety, his natural position, and move Christian Izien into the slot, and then have a competition with someone we draft for the slot versus trying to find a safety. So that's where it hurts Jordan Whitehead. Yeah. Now, I am still kind of leaning towards, I'd like to see Jordan Whitehead come back, see what he can do in full recovery with Antoine Winfield Jr. for a majority of the season versus one guy's in and one guy's out. But ultimately, that'll be up to Todd Bowles and Jason Light.
Yep, exactly. Well, the next couple guys we'll talk about, Henry Gigante is kind of spoiling it here. JTS and KJ Britt got to go. So here's the thing. Who should we talk about first? Let's talk about Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, right?
Sure.
Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, former first-round pick, and this is Joe Tryon-Shoyinka in a nutshell. This was not a sack fumble. This was actually a completion from Marcus Mariota. So this is Joe Tryon-Shoyinka's career in Tampa, unfortunately, in a nutshell. Close, but no cigar. Lots of close calls, but didn't really come up with the goods. 15 career sacks in 4 years. The Buccaneers did not pick up his 5th-year option. He was the first-round pick for the team in 2021, the year after they won the Super Bowl, that last pick in the first round. And he has gotten close to quarterbacks, but he's too finesse and just is not that kind of guy. Now, Todd Bowles has been his biggest champion, the biggest believer. His second biggest believer is George Edwards. I can tell you that the front office is not very enamored with Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, hence not getting the 5th-year option picked up. They were ticked off that Chris Braswell, their second-round pick, who they drafted to replace Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, did not get more play. Well, sometimes you have disagreements between the coaching staff who wants to play the proven guys and the front office who drafts the new players that they want to see on the field. And the real quick, easy way to solve this is to not re-sign Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. So now you got to play Chris Braswell because we're not going to re-sign Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. So that's what's happening this offseason. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka regressed from 5 sacks in 2023 to just 2 sacks in 2024. As a matter of fact, it started off pretty good for JTS. He actually had the Bucs' first sack of the year on Jaden Daniels, of all people, one of the hardest guys to sack. Yeah. But Matt, he would only have 1 more sack the rest of the way. He only missed 2 games. But despite starting 11 games, Matt, he had 24 tackles, which was a career low. To put that in perspective, in 15 regular season games, not including the playoffs, in 15 regular season games, Matt, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka had 24 tackles. Servassier Dennis, in 3.5 games, had 22. Just 2 less tackles for a rotational linebacker instead of a guy that had 11 starts and had 24 tackles. JTS also had 3 tackles for loss and 2 sacks, 1 forced fumble. His best play was probably that block punt that ended up being a touchdown for J.J. Russell.
Oh, it absolutely was. I mean, you're not going to re-sign a guy because he had a special teams block punt when he was supposed to be your starting outside linebacker for the long haul. And it's crazy, right? Because if you go back to 2021, JTS was on the other side of this. We were talking about JTS needs more playing time. Jason Pierre-Paul was playing with the torn labrum, and we all know how tough he is, and he was playing through injury, but you're stunting the growth of Joe Tryon-Shoyinka by continuing to play a very injured Jason Pierre-Paul. And they just wouldn't play JTS a little bit more. And then you fast forward to the 2024 season, and you're playing JTS too much, and Chris Braswell isn't getting in the game because of it. So it's very odd to see how he was on one side of it, and now he's on the other side when it comes to it. But, I mean, I still remember in 2022 being like, JTS is going to be the breakout guy. He's going to have a great season. All the work was in there from the first season. Now he's going to get more playing time. He's got the skill set and everything, and it just never came through. And, yeah, you could talk about that. He missed 2 less games. He only had 1 less start this year, 11 starts compared to 12, and that sack number dropped by 3. I mean, hell, when he was a rookie,
half the tackles. Half the tackles.
When he was a rookie in 2021, he only started 6 games and had 4 sacks. He had 2 more as a rookie in 6 starts than he did.
Never developed.
11 starts and 2 sacks this year.
Todd Bowles just couldn't quit him. Just couldn't quit him.
4 sacks in 2022, 5 sacks in 2023, and then 2 this season in 2024. And what's even tougher is, he had less playing time because they opted for Anthony Nelson instead. And it wasn't even this year. In years past, Anthony Nelson was the one making splash plays.
Yes.
And not Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. And JTS, his biggest splash play came on special teams, not even on defense. So,
agreed.
Again, a good guy just couldn't get the job done. So you're not going to offer him a lot of money. And at this point, I don't even want the Bucs to give him like the veteran minimum or anything like that. Because
they need to move on.
Chris Braswell in place. You have to figure out what you have with Chris Braswell. If you want to re-sign Anthony Nelson, fine. I can be down with that. Anthony Nelson has been important to this team in certain areas, but you have to see what you have in Chris Braswell. If you end up drafting an edge rusher early, then it makes even less sense.
Exactly. Yeah, you need the roster spot for the next guy. Yeah, totally agree.
That's why they let go of Shaq after the season. And Gerald McCoy said this too, but why'd they bring back Shaq Barrett at the end of the season? Because they didn't trust what they had linebacker. And JTS is a big reason for it.
Yep. You can always trust walk-ons to have the best happy hour in Tampa, though. That's for sure.
What an amazing comeback, Coach.
You're not kidding. I mean, we did lose the game badly, but coming to walk-ons afterward, the team got a much-needed win off the field.
Walk-ons for the win.
That's right. Walk-ons for the win. You can earn, save, and win by downloading the Walk-ons Rewards app. And if you do so and sign up, they're going to give you free mozzarella logs. That's right. That's the best appetizer on the menu, folks, as far as I'm concerned. They're not mozzarella sticks. They deserve to be called logs because they're huge and they taste delicious. So they're free when you download the Walk-ons Rewards app today. You can also try their wings, which are absolutely dynamite, with the new Southern Bourbon sauce for a limited time only. When you do that and you order with the Southern Bourbon sauce, you get 100 bonus points just for doing that. So it's a fantastic way to try the new Southern Bourbon sauce and get rewarded for it at Walk-ons. 3 locations in the Tampa Bay area: Wesley Chapel, Midtown Tampa, and the Lakeland location. Happy hour all day on Tuesdays from open to close, as well as 2 sets of happy hours on Wednesday and Thursday. It's the best happy hour in Tampa, folks. Get to Walk-ons for your football, food, and fun. All right, Matt. Henry was kind enough to tee up the other guy on our list who was another starter on defense. So we've got Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, we've got Jordan Whitehead, Jamel Dean. That's 3 possible starters right there that could be out the door. And KJ Britt is another one. That's right, another Todd Bowles favorite. Again, the front office can say, well, you played him too much. You should have gone to J.J. Russell or somebody else earlier. We're just not going to re-sign him and make him an option in 2025 for Todd Bowles. I'm sure Todd Bowles would love to have him back on a cheap 1-year deal, but I just don't think it's worth it. The temptation there, right? You need to start over, get better, faster, younger, more athletic at the inside linebacker position. If Levante wants to come back, bring him back.
Yeah.
But KJ Britt was one of the absolute worst graded players at the linebacker position. He had a 45.5 grade. I want to say he was the second lowest he was 81 out of 82 graded inside linebackers by Pro Football Focus. He had a 40.9 coverage grade. He missed 3 games. He had 72 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, half a sack, 1 pass breakup, no interceptions, no forced fumbles, no fumble recoveries, no memorable plays. Time to move on from KJ Britt.
The worst thing that happened to KJ Britt was that Rachaad Dennis got injured.
That's
because
right.
They had a good system going with KJ Britt playing on first down and second down, and then Rachaad Dennis coming in for the passing plays. And we got fooled a little bit because KJ Britt came in and replaced Devin White 2 seasons ago. That's a very small sample size. And then you had, again, a small sample size with the platoon situation. But once it was the KJ Britt show, he couldn't handle it in pass coverage. He got exposed a ton. And the Bucs refused to play anybody else. So yeah. I don't think there's really a reason to be back, especially when J.J. Russell can be that, third or fourth string. I think the big question is, can Rachaad Dennis stay healthy and can he play all 3 downs? I like J.J. Russell back as a 4th string, 5th string linebacker. Of course, Deion Jones signed to a futures deal as well and was on the practice squad for the last month of the season. But we don't need any retreads to cover this year for the Bucs. No retreads. Just start fresh. There's not much from the defense that says, "Oh, let's bring back this guy and KJ Britt." I wish him well, but unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be with the Bucs.
Yeah, so that's 4 starters right there on defense that may not be back again. Matt's not Todd Bowles. I'm not Jason Light, so we don't necessarily get to say so in this. But we've been doing this for a while now. We've watched this team. We kind of know how they operate. We kind of know where their weaknesses are, and so don't be surprised if most, if not all, these guys don't return this year. Trey Palmer is the 5th guy. He is the starting punt returner for Tampa Bay, and was the wide receiver number 3 in 2023, but got demoted to wide receiver number 4. And at times, Matt, he was like 5, right? I mean, Ryan Miller, I think, was better than he was at times. A 58.2 PFF grade, missed 2 games with a concussion. Starting punt returner, didn't really do much there. 17 punt returns, 136 yards. That's less than a 10-yard average. For such a speedster, his long was just 17 yards. He had 1 kickoff return for 14 yards. Didn't show much there. 39 catches for 385 yards and 3 touchdowns, plus a touchdown in the playoffs as a rookie. He was supposed to battle Jalen McMillan for the number 3 job. McMillan took that. And even when McMillan was struggling at the beginning of the season, didn't give Palmer many opportunities.
Right.
Only 12 catches for 172 yards, 1 touchdown, a long of 27. He was tied for 8th, Matt, with Ryan Miller with 12 catches this year. So I just don't know. He didn't really have the downfield rapport with Baker Mayfield. They could not connect. So you didn't see Liam Cohen try it a lot because why waste it down? Trey Palmer, it looks like this team is going to be drafting another wide receiver. If they do, then that's wide receiver number 4. Still have Cam Johnson on this team. Still have Ryan Miller. There's a very good chance that Trey Palmer, who was a 6th-round pick, right? He wasn't a day 2 guy or anything. Very good chance that even if he still is on this team for training camp in the preseason, that he doesn't make this roster.
Yeah, I'm not furious or anything about Trey Palmer because it is important to point out that he was a 6th-round pick. I think what was most aggravating, at least from a punt return standpoint, wasn't even the fact that he didn't have a big return. It was he would catch the ball at like the 2-yard line where it's like, dude, just let it bounce into the end zone or force them to make a play. Or it was catching the ball and then immediately running sideways to the end line or to the out of bounds line, and not just going up the field. So I want to see Cameron Johnson or someone else handle punt returns this year. I think the ship has sailed on punt returns for for Trey Palmer. Whatever they want to do on kick return, if they want to stick with Sean Tucker, that's fine. No big deal there. And for wide receiver, I mean, even when Jalen McMillan got hurt, it was Sterling Shepard that stepped up. It was Ryan Miller that made the big touchdown in Kansas City to force it into overtime. Where was Trey Palmer in all of these moments? He never
have
had
the
a big
from the
play.
coaches.
All he has was the deep threat down the field, but he's not even a deep threat the way that Scotty Miller was when Scotty Miller was on.
Exactly.
So what exactly is he providing? I think he's a fit 6th-string guy. If Sterling Shepard doesn't come back, then he's battling with Ryan Miller, like you mentioned. I think he'll battle with Cam Johnson. If he makes this team, great. Maybe he improves one way or another. But it wouldn't be a shock at all if he's not on this team.
I agree. Well said, Matt. That is the show for today. Be sure to come back tomorrow at 4 o'clock. We're going to be talking unsung Bucs in 2024. And Malcolm Harvey with the $1.99 super chat here at the last second. We appreciate that. Any trades for a corner you guys would like? Let me think about that for a minute here as I tell you about Josh Grizzard, his reaction, or I should say our reaction to his press conference. That'll be on Thursday. Grizzard takes the mic at 12:30 at One Buck Place. We'll have our 4 o'clock show for you all and our reaction to what Josh Grizzard had to say. Maybe L'Jarius Sneed out of Tennessee would be a guy starting Kansas City. That
I've seen that pop up.
Tennessee. That would be a guy that I think would be an ideal slot nickel, right? I mean, you're talking about moving Tyke Smith to safety to replace Whitehead. That would be a really ideal trade there. You can probably get him for maybe a 4th or a 5th round pick. And I think he would do a lot to shore up that position. He's a bit of a playmaker, so I like that. He's got enough size.
Has that attitude.
Yeah, I think he was a Bucs best bet coming out of Louisiana Tech, if my memory serves me right. I loved him coming out of college. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'd be down with that for sure. I don't recall if we got to this one, but Trey Cloutier, thanks for the $4.99. George Edwards championing for JTS is exactly why we needed to move on from him. Let him go with JTS today.
Yeah, both of them. Bye. Yeah, not a fan. Sorry. 12 combined sacks from the outside linebackers. You didn't do a good job.
No,
it's just that simple, And if George Edwards hangs around and gets 25 sacks out of the guys, I'll be singing his praises. But, you are what your body of work says you are, and it just wasn't good enough. And so I think they should move on from JTS. I think they're going to. I think they should move on from George Edwards too, but I'm not Todd Bowles. I don't get to decide who is on this team as a player or as a coach. So
Scott is not a fan of George Edwards, but we are a fan of each and every one of you, and we appreciate all of you, Pewter people, for joining us this afternoon. And if you're a fan of us, please follow us on all of our social media on X, Facebook, and Instagram. We are at Pewter Report, and our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment below on this video as well. So that'll do it for us on today's show. For Scott Reynolds, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.